Have you ever been driven to the edge of life while frantically trying to find your lost integrity? Her whisper, clearly, "She doesn't love me anymore," broke my heart. Nobody in the world could be unfaithful to someone they love. Once sacred, our vows were irreparably broken. "This is beyond your power to fix," I said, coldly and definitively. "You've ended our marriage, and we are no longer husband and wife. Enjoy watching my story of betrayal and resiliency." I'm writing this from a hospital room because I'm at my wit's end, feeling lost and alone with my thoughts. I could use anything right now: advice, kind words. I'm not picky. Usually, I hang around the internet for laughs, but today I'm here under a fake name trying to make sense of a mess. My wife, Mari, and I had a car crash yesterday morning. I was lucky to only sustain minor cuts, but Mari wasn't so lucky. Her collarbone and 3 ribs are broken, and one of her lungs gave in. The doctors say she will recover, but for the time being, she's unconscious from the pain medication. Typing this on my phone is difficult, but I have too much time on my hands and too many thoughts racing through my mind. Our marriage hasn't been great lately, and it would be a lie to say I never imagined Mari could betray us. My heart is broken, and the saddest part is that piece of me is lying just a few feet away from me. Over the last 3 months, I've noticed a drifting apart between us, but I couldn't figure out why. We're 34 years old, and we've been each other's everything since we were kids. We started dating in high school, went to college together, and she's the only person I've ever been physically with until recently. It was the same for her. After college, we got married, and 3 years later, our daughter Carrie was born. Our kids are the most important thing in my life, and without them, I doubt I would have the strength to face today. Thankfully, they weren't in the car with us. Not sure what's right anymore, what to do, say, or even think, but I know that I have to keep going for my kids. They're the light guiding me through this darkness, and I need to find a way to heal, forgive, or at least understand. Learning about Mari's betrayal feels like a nightmare I can't wake up from, but here I am, needing to make sense of it all. Life has thrown me a curveball, but maybe, just maybe, I can learn to swing back. However, my wife decided to go out with her best friend, even though I had asked her to return home and avoid driving in the snow. She had promised that she and her friend Becca would just go grab a few drinks since they wouldn't be seeing each other for a while. I went to bed and slept soundly until around 5 in the morning. When I woke up, I noticed that my wife's car was gone, and that even more snow had accumulated. I assumed that perhaps Mari and Becca had had too much fun and ended up staying at her place, so I dressed and got into my SUV before leaving. I texted Mari, cautioning her not to drive because of the thick snow, and mentioned I was coming to pick her up. My message just sat there unread. I've lost countless hours thinking about what might have happened if she'd seen that text. I would still be in the dark and uncomfortable, but I wouldn't be drowning in this sea of misery. When I got to Becca's place and pulled up in front of her condo, I checked my phone again and saw that the message wasn't read. I thought Mari might have seen it by now and be prepared to go when I got there, but I prepared myself for the possibility that I would have to wake her up. The front door was unlocked, so I stepped inside, looked at the TV area to my right, and saw that it was empty. Rebecca's room was downstairs, so I didn't want to bother her. So I went upstairs to the guest room and opened the door. And that's when my world fell apart. When I finally calmed down, the guy said he'd take his friend to the hospital. Mari cried hard while Rebecca and I yelled it out. I told her and my wife I was leaving and she had 5 minutes to pick me up in my car or don't come back home. She made it in 3. I can still clearly remember stepping into the room and seeing 2 heads poking out from beneath the covers. I leaned over to pull the comforter back and then vividly saw my wife with her head resting on a shirtless man's chest. Suddenly, Becca, Mari, and this stranger trying to wrestle me away from him. I might be behind bars if they hadn't intervened. Driving recklessly in the snow, even with 4-wheel drive, is a bad decision, but it was another car that swerved into our lane and pushed us through a guardrail, which is how Mari got hurt. The car flipped. Thank God for airbags, but we survived. The kids don't know that we had a crash. I haven't called anyone, even though I should have, but this crash wasn't just about the car. My life feels crashed, and I'm trying to assess how bad it is before I tell others. I feel nothing and everything, and it's not because of the crash. The person in the hospital bed feels like a stranger now. I have a lot of questions for her, but I'm afraid of the answers. She must have cheated, so did she ever love me? And now, after she cheated, could I even want her love back, if that was possible? We said for better or worse, and I meant it, but we're not married anymore. For me, that was the moment she cheated, and it ended our marriage. The promise was broken. She ended our marriage, and we are no longer husband and wife. I don't need a lawyer to tell me it's over, she's done that. So I'm not tied to my vows anymore. A big part of me wants to just leave this room. I want to call her parents, tell them what she did and what happened, and then say she's their problem now. My kids are all that's keeping me here, even though I'm missing them terribly right now. I have cuts all over my face and neck, so deep cuts that it feels like our family has been ripped apart. But even in the midst of this emotional storm, I can see that my kids need their mother. I had dreams of growing old with her, but those dreams have been dashed. Still, I need to figure this out for my kids. They need those motherly talks and tender care that I just can't give in the same way. I'm trying my hardest to be a dad, but I can't be a mom too. I don't know what to do. I can't bear to sit across from the person who broke my heart. Maybe calling her parents will help a little, but then I wouldn't know what to tell them. I don't want to be in the same room as her family, but I also can't keep the truth from them because they would see right through the tension. What in the world should I tell our children? Telling them that we've hit a rough patch seems like the biggest understatement. I am not good at hiding my emotions. My wife may be able to do so, but I can't help feeling angry and hurt. How did my life get so out of control? I know I need legal counsel, that much is obvious, but how do I get through this current crisis? I apologize to everyone who offered advice in my initial post. I was unable to respond to your messages directly due to a technical issue that made it difficult to communicate. After that post, I stayed another night in the hospital room to watch over Mari while she slept sedated. The room was dimly lit by the machines, and I found myself staring into space, lost in thought, burdened by everything that had happened. It was in that quiet room, with just my thoughts and the constant beep of the machines, that reality hit me. There was a moment of clarity despite the storm of emotions inside of me, the hurt, the anger, and the betrayal. My kids needed their mom, and I needed to find a way through this, not only for them but also for myself. The road ahead is muddled, paved with obstacles and heartache, but I will walk it for my kids. I will find a way through the hurt and the anger, because they deserve a family, even if it's not the one I had imagined. Lying there, it dawned on me again and again how my life had become so twisted. Part of me felt that I was being too kind by simply sharing space with her, but another part of me still harbored love that I didn't want to feel. That love felt like a weakness. Time and time again, it became clear that there was no turning back to the way we used to be. It was as if a great storm had torn apart and left our life in ruins. Tears came thick and heavy. I knew that a significant part of my life had ended, leaving a deep wound in my heart. The following morning, I left when the nurse arrived to take blood. Mari called out to me as I left, but I pretended not to hear. I ate breakfast, barely feeling hungry, and tried to divert my attention with my phone while eating, ignoring a text from Becca about Mari. Eventually, I decided it was okay to visit her parents. Her dad was always up early, so I figured I'd talk to him first, figuring he could determine whether or not her mother needed to be woken up. I saw the smoke from his wood stove and knocked before entering, and he immediately noticed the wounds on me. I told him there had been an accident, that Mari was hit hard, but we really needed to talk. I think he mistook my words and assumed. We got together in the kitchen, and I told them everything that had happened. We were driving around a bend when a car swerved into our lane with our bigger all-wheel drive car. I tried to keep us on the road until we hit a barrier, and the side where Mari was hit hard by a steel beam fixed in concrete. Mari took a serious blow, but her airbag saved her. I told them that she was stable and the doctors were hopeful that she would recover fully. The whole thing, talking to her parents, and dealing with the fallout, really hit home to me. I felt like I was maneuvering through a storm of love and hurt. They both sobbed, knowing their girl had been hurt but would still be there for them to cherish. I had to stop them, tell them the car crash wasn't what brought me to their door, and explain how I woke up that morning, texted that I was coming in the snow to check on my wife, and walked into our home to find her with a man I didn't know. It was a moment that reshaped me, taught me about the tough fabric of life, the complex threads of love, and the reality that sometimes things break beyond repair. But even in that breaking, I found a strange kind of strength, an understanding of life's fragile yet precious nature. I struck him repeatedly in a blur of shock, and each time they gasped in shock. Then I shared the hospital room she was in with them, telling them I hoped we could keep things civil and that I wanted them to stay involved in the kids' lives. I also mentioned that my dad was watching the kids now, but I was ending the marriage because she had broken our bond and was no longer my wife. I was going to my dad's to tell the kids about the crash and that we were divorcing, not telling them their moms cheated. I told my ex-in-laws that I wished things had turned out differently, but that I was certain that I wasn't the one who had shattered our relationship. They attempted to justify their actions by saying that she had simply made a mistake, but I politely declined, enjoying the years I had spent with them as my in-laws, and I walked out. When I got to my dad's house, I had a ton of emotions to release. I found him drinking coffee in the kitchen, unaware of the turmoil, having assumed I was on a cruise. He stood perplexed by my early return. I just hugged him tightly, allowing the torrent of tears to pass before he asked questions. He felt that it was appropriate to hold me for a while before he asked questions. He led me to the living room, advising us to wait until my mom arrives with her coffee. The focus is on the raw universal emotions that bind us: betrayal, pain, support, and the complicated web of family ties. I spilled it all, catching Mari, the love of my life, in a lie, the crash that followed, and her being badly hurt. I just told her folks so they could rush to her side. Seeing my parents' faces fall was heartbreaking. Every simple word and short sentence carries the weight of shattered dreams and the hope for understanding between the heart and the heart. I tried to reassure them, keeping it light, telling them their grandparents would take them to see their mother soon. That day full of play and laughter with them reminded me how much they meant, pulling me back from the brink. Mom asked what now, and I said divorce was the only path left, aiming to be a stand-up dad. At that moment, little Carrie's daddy filled the room, her small feet pattering down the stairs, with Michael a few steps behind. As we hugged, they noticed my scrapes, their young eyes wide. After Mari's phone was lost in the crash, there was silence until her mom's phone buzzed and messages started to come in. I couldn't handle them, so I muted the noise. The next day, I had a clear mission. I needed to find a divorce lawyer. Not out of spite, but to figure out our shared life and who would take care of our children. I spoke with 3 firms, connecting with the second one. The third had an opportunity to change my mind, but it seemed that I had already made up my mind, prepared to entrust the second with handling my new reality. It was the simple, pure love for my children that cut through the fog, guiding me towards a future worth fighting for. Their innocence, laughter, and unconditional love were beacons of hope, gently ushering me towards healing and resilience, ready to weave new dreams from the ashes of the old. This experience showed me how life's complex, painful turns can starkly outline what truly matters amidst the mess of betrayal and heartbreak. We can use a middleman for the kids' handoffs. I don't need to speak to her ever again. It's like I never really knew her, so why keep up a chat with a stranger? I feel like I've won the custody battle, which is all that matters. I'm not after full custody because they should have their mom in their lives, but after what she did, she's cut off from mine. We would have missed our cruise if I hadn't gone back to work the following week. I haven't talked to anyone about the crash or our breakup, and driving a rental car will raise questions about getting a new car at work. I wonder if I should tell HR, but I'm already dealing with enough shame. Divorce feels like admitting defeat, but I can't stay stuck on a sinking ship. And thank you to everyone who encouraged me to get tested for STDs. Thankfully, everything came back clear. But the experience left me feeling depressed, unjustly sullied. I believe Mari is no longer in the hospital. Her parents never attempted to contact her, not that they could. Mari sent endless texts, which were unanswered. I'm eager to file for divorce and put an end to this monumental mistake. Her betrayal erased everything that we had. If I could choose again, I would choose someone else, someone who could be honest and loyal. Her once stated strengths are now her greatest failure. I'm preparing for what comes next, even as I mourn what was supposed to be a lifelong journey together. It's not just about moving on, it's about finding peace in the solitary steps ahead. All those sweet nothings, all lies. I was nothing to her. People like to love a pretty lie more than face a harsh truth. Not me, though. So there it is, turning the page from a chapter written with mistakes, searching for simpler truths and genuine connections. Many asked for details about who she cheated with, why, and for how long. I'm sorry, but I have nothing to tell about that. Honestly, I don't even want to know, unless life is at gunpoint. Cheating has no justifications. If you vow to be someone and then break that vow, you're the worst. I wish with all my heart that I'd never met her, that I'd taken a chance on literally anyone else. She had no right to give me a life, then take it away without my consent. The man I was before the betrayal is gone forever. The woman she never was is no longer there. And everything I thought my life was is now just debris. No one can live in. I'm not sure where to begin, or even what to say first, but I'll try. The first big step was hiring an excellent attorney. Her firm is the best in the area at defending men like me in divorce courts. Rather than passing off my case to someone else, she took it on. The entire team has been nothing but honest and compassionate with me, not just interested in taking my money. That's my lawyer, Nadia. She's been a rock, keeping me together. We started with the standard paperwork, me listing our belongings, bank account information, and my approximate income to Mari. After I disclosed the mess from the crash scene, she inquired about an STD check, which I had given all clear. She then asked if I had taken any pictures or recorded the cheating, which I had not considered. In an instant, she was on the phone with one of their private investigators, and I was scheduled to meet with him the following day. Since fault is a factor in divorce in this state, I needed concrete evidence of Mari's betrayal to make sure I got my way. We had one of her team members serve as a go-between for talks and child exchanges, and I obtained an aide to inform my future father-in-law that Mari could have the kids this weekend and the following week. The aide, Nadia, then inquired as to whether I had scheduled therapy sessions for myself and the kids. I replied that I had scheduled mine for this coming weekend and that week, but that I was still awaiting the kids' therapy sessions. I'm usually leery of lawyers, but Nadia seemed different, like she actually cared. She gave me a list of tasks to do before our next meeting, much like the advice I've seen online. So when she suggested picking up 2 DNA kits from the pharmacy, I didn't question it. It seemed standard. She offered to recommend some therapists as soon as I felt the kids needed it. That night, after getting the kids, I did the cheek swabs on us and sent the kits off. The next morning, on Friday, the kids went to their grandfather's, and I headed to work. Coming back from lunch, I noticed an email alert waiting. Until I was at my desk, I opened the first email and clicked the link. It confirmed Michael was indeed my son. Then I opened the second email, clicked the link, and read it, then read it again. My head started shaking in disbelief. I knew I had to leave the office before emotions took over. Stepping outside, the world seemed to blur around me. Betrayal, a sharp, cold fact, now had a hold on me. The air felt heavier as I walked, each step echoing louder than the last. I called Nadia, my voice barely steady, saying we needed to talk. She sensed the urgency and agreed to meet sooner. As I waited for our meeting, thoughts swirled in my head, a storm of hurt, anger, but also a need to protect my kids from the storm brewing. Nadia was a beacon in this chaos, her calm demeanor and understanding eyes offering a sliver of hope that maybe, just maybe, things could be mended for the better. Nadia's words, "It's not just about navigating the storm," she said, "but finding safe shores." Her words, unexpectedly, brought a sense of peace amid the chaos. Yes, there was a legal battle ahead, but there was also a path to healing, a future where the pain could be transformed into something else, something like strength. At our meeting, Nadia spoke about healing for both me and the kids. Looking ahead, I saw that this was more than just facing betrayal and getting a good court result. It was about starting over, regaining trust, and demonstrating to my children that we can weather these storms together, stronger than we would alone. Perhaps along the way, I would find a way to forgive, not for them, but for myself, to break free from the bonds of pain and go on with hope illuminating the path. But I snapped pics of both tests and mailed them to myself. Then I went to my car and started to cry hard as I realized that Carrie, my girl, wasn't actually mine. It felt like a deep cut, as if I had lost a part of me. I can't describe it any other way. I didn't know who to reach out to. I just sat there, tears flowing, wishing this was all just a bad dream. I downloaded the photos from my email and sent them to my lawyer in no time. Nadia called, asking where I was. Work was all I could get out. She told me to stay put and that someone from her office would come get me soon. I hung up, and then all of a sudden, I started throwing up until there was nothing left. By the time the sick feeling passed and I stopped feeling dizzy, a helper from the office showed up to take me in. They walked me straight to Nadia's office. As she wrapped up with another client, she immediately said that these tests can sometimes mess up. She saw how torn up I was and said it was totally valid to feel this way, but she insisted we redo the test with Carrie and me at a local spot to make sure it was all clear. The whole situation felt unreal. Even after finding out Mari was seeing someone else, I thought checking the kids' DNA was just ticking a box. I never would have guessed Mari could step out like that. If it was true, she had another man's child. Who was she really? I couldn't even talk to Mari about it. I had no solid proof. But if the test showed what we thought it might, how would we even start that talk? Someone from the office checked my blood pressure to make sure I was okay. It was high, and I felt like a panic attack could hit at any moment. I was numb and in shock all at once. I found myself lost in thought, wondering about the future. My heart sank at the idea that my little girl might not actually be mine. In that moment, I was relieved the kids were with their mom. The thought crossed my mind, could both tests be wrong? Could Carrie be mine after all? Waiting another 2 days for answers was out of the question, so we arranged for Carrie to be taken the next day for a few hours to do another test in a clean space by experts. There was no mistake this time. I'm not Carrie's dad. I had to wait a day for the results, and she was already back with her mom when I found out. The pain hit harder the second time, and I was thankful Carrie didn't have to see my tears. I passed the news to my attorney, who called to see how I was. She told me to reach out to my family, to not face this alone. I drove to my father's house, tears streaming down my face. My mom instantly knew something was wrong, but I couldn't say it. Eventually, I managed to say, Carrie is not my daughter. My mom understood, even though I couldn't repeat it. In the silence that followed, broken only by my sobs, she called my dad. She told him to come home fast, but safely, that I had terrible news. My dad wanted clues, but she just urged him to hurry. He made it back in 20 minutes. We spent hours just crying together. I tried to comfort my dad, he tried to comfort my mom, and they both tried to comfort me. But the pain was too deep. They naturally wanted to know about Michael, and I assured them he was indeed my son. They felt a brief moment of relief, then guilt for feeling relieved that they were only losing one grandchild. They asked me what I planned to do next. I told them I had no idea. This wave of emotions and support flowed between us as we navigated through the heartache together, a testament to the strength and love within a family amidst the deepest sorrows. The future was uncertain, and the path ahead was unclear, yet the warmth of family provided a sliver of light in the overwhelming darkness. In that moment, I knew one thing for sure, Carrie wouldn't lack anything she needed or most of what she wanted. I didn't even think about the child support I might have to pay. She was going to be well looked after. As bad as I felt for myself, I felt even worse for her, who had done nothing wrong. Did I want to be her main guardian? Could I even get that right if I tried? I started to wonder if Mari had any clue. I wanted some answers badly. I saw Nadia after work on Monday. She had met with the detective we hired to watch Mari after the car crash. Mari hadn't left the house to meet anyone, so there was no fresh proof of her cheating. But Nadia had me bring Mari's old phone from our place. The detective got into it and could see almost everything, as if the phone wasn't broken. He discovered nude photos sent and received to and from various men. There were tons of messages with enough wrongdoing admitted to convince any judge. They asked if I wanted to see the messages or photos. I said no, but Nadia and I had to think about how to face Mari about Carrie. She thought it best to do it in her office if she could get Mari to come. She rang Mari's mom right there with me. I heard Mari's voice for the first time since leaving her at the hospital. Nadia was blunt, saying Mari needed to meet to clear things up. My ex said she'd been waiting to talk. When asked if her lawyer should be there, Mari said she had none but agreed to meet the next afternoon. Getting through the next day at work was tough. I felt like breaking down, but had to act like everything was fine. Holding down lunch was a struggle, but I left at 3 o'clock and went to the firm feeling sick. I got there first on purpose. I wanted her to be stuck, going in to sit far from the door with no chance to come close to me. I was looking at fake happy family photos on my phone when she walked in, needing help to move and wearing 2 casts from our crash. No way she'd be hugging me, even though I half thought she might be laying it on thick for pity. But our crash was no joke. I really just wanted her to sit down already so I could get her to come clean. Once we all sat, water was offered, and we started our meet. My lawyer asked Mari if it was okay to tape our talk. She was okay with it. The moment we hit record, my soon-to-be ex tried saying sorry. I cut her off sharp, wanting the truth about how many guys she'd been with and when it all started. The private eye had shown plenty, enough that the guy I caught wasn't her first, not by a long shot. She didn't know what we knew, of course, so she figured she'd just own up to what she thought we could prove, hoping to play down her axe before the crash. I asked again, wanting a number since our son was born. That hit a nerve, but she played dumb, thinking she could still play games. I was getting heated. Nadia calmed me down with a touch and a pushback from the edge. She looked at Mari, asking if I was a good dad. Mari didn't hesitate to praise me, saying I was the best dad for her kids. Hearing her call them her kids nearly made me lose it. Nadia then threw a curve, asking about the dad of her other kid. Mari's face showed her shock, asking what other dad we meant. That's when my lawyer laid out the DNA test results for Carrie right there on the table. Despite the mess my life had become since finding out about her cheating, I had to see her face right then, in that moment. Truths spilled out, and hearts broke. Further, we dived into the harsh light of betrayal and its scars, unraveling lies hidden beneath vows and promises. This was more than just a meeting, it was the unveiling of a wounded bond, a reveal of truths veiled by time and silence. Through the storm of emotions, the quest for clarity stood firm, navigating through the debris of a shattered dream. But in the ruins, a quest for healing and closure, a journey through the pain towards a hope of new beginnings, however distant they may seem. She was clearly shocked to learn Carrie wasn't my child, and then she tried to say, "You're her dad because you've been there." But I quickly stopped that thought. I asked her who Carrie's real dad was. She looked down, a sign of guilt maybe, and I thought she was hiding someone. When she said she wasn't sure who the father was, Mari saw me break down crying for the first time ever. I just couldn't handle it and fell apart. Mari cried too but wanted to explain. She brought up how hard the postpartum depression hit her after Michael came into the world. I tried my best to understand. I can say I really did everything to look after my son, to give her space. There were days she was so low she couldn't leave the bed, but I cared for us all, and I loved doing it for the family I thought we were. I had even fooled myself into believing we'd grown stronger through it all. It wasn't true. She didn't put the blame on Rebecca, but when she first convinced Mari to join her for some nights out, I was actually thankful. They'd been close for a long time but had lost touch during the pregnancy. Mari told me on their second outing, she got very drunk and ended up getting physical with a guy. She felt guilty for a long time, but then she started resenting not being young and free. She confessed to hooking up with different men on those nights out with Rebecca. Until the accident, she'd always come home or at least didn't stay out too late. Over the years, she insisted she didn't want any emotional ties with these men. She said she always used protection and never was with the same man more than a few times. She claimed all she wanted was the physical act. Hearing about your wife's betrayals is shocking. Finding out my life was like some TV show I never signed up for. Hit me hard. I wanted to scream at her, but my mind was racing, trying to figure out how many times she'd cheated on me over the years. Nadia asked her if she knew who Carrie's dad might be, and she swore she thought Carrie was mine. My lawyer suggested that maybe a condom broke once, when my wife said that happened a few times with different men. I lost it. I demanded to know who she really was, because the woman spilling these awful truths was a stranger to me. It was as though she was talking about something as mundane as passing the salt. I questioned when she began to despise me, and for what reason. What had I done to deserve such betrayal? How could she do this to our daughter? I exploded with fury. She just sat there taking it, because she knew it was all true. After hearing what she did and how I felt about her, divorce was inevitable. What was once a marriage had turned to dust. The only thing left was to count the losses. I've lost a wife and daughter, that's 2. A wife lost a husband, which makes 3. A daughter lost a father, a brother saw his sister turn into a half-sibling. Then there's the extended family on both sides. Mari had torn apart 2 entire families. Her folks would be devastated by her actions, and I vowed to show them all the evidence the PI uncovered. She admitted to using dating apps to meet men under the guise of girl time with her friend Rebecca. She insisted she never intended to hurt me. She claimed she had no idea Carrie wasn't mine. I believed her, because I was just as clueless. But DNA doesn't lie. I asked why she didn't just divorce me. She admitted it was because she didn't want to lose the security I provided her. Tears meant nothing to me by then. I looked at her with nothing but disdain. I felt used, ashamed, less of a man. I felt crushed. This story had to be rewritten with the emotional weight of the discovery and its aftermath remaining a central theme, capturing a detailed account of personal devastation. The challenge in doing so was to keep the essence of the betrayal and heartache while simplifying the language for clarity and relatability. This rewrite also highlights the profound impact of the betrayal on the larger family structure, illustrating the ripple effect of one individual's actions. I'm pretty sure she chose not to hire a lawyer because I own everything she has, save for a small 401k. I inherited my granddad's estate when I was 14 years old, so everything I own comes from that. My real mom died of a rare and fast cancer when I was 2 years old, and my dad remarried when I was 4 years old. I've always known she's not my biological mother, and that I'm not her real son, and raising me filled that void in her heart. When my real mom's father passed away, his bequest went to me, but I wasn't allowed to use it until I was 21. I hit the books hard and went to school, but thanks to my inheritance, I don't need to work financially. Mari was clearly drugged up for pain, which might explain her harsh honesty. Yet her words cut deep, and my mind made it worse. I asked if she felt any shame. She claimed she did. I wondered how on earth we'd figure out who Carrie's real dad is. My soon-to-be ex started with the "I already know who her father is" nonsense. I was not up for a deep talk on what makes someone a dad. The real dad deserves to know, and Carrie needs to know her dad's side for health stuff. The detective hadn't found anything before Carrie was born. I asked if she could find any of these guys or if she kept their numbers. She actually had the nerve to say the whole point was to never see them again. What was I thinking? Surely she should have kept a number to tell him about a kid on the way or an STD. In this messy tale, emotions run high, and complications are plenty. The weight of history and choices sits heavy, pulling at the heart and fogging the mind. How do you navigate a path through pain and betrayal where the future of a child hangs in balance, clouded by the past? The quest for truth and responsibility becomes not just a personal journey but a moral obligation, dredging up the most profound questions of love, duty, and identity among the tangled threads of affairs and secrets. Finding a way forward demands wisdom, courage, and perhaps a sense of forgiveness, not just for those who may have wronged us, but also for ourselves. I want my name removed from the birth certificate of my car. Tests reveal she's not my child, but rather her mother's alone. Nevertheless, long after she turns 18, I want to continue lending her money. There is nothing that she will miss. But I'm clueless when it comes to my son. I wanted a September 10th TH split before the DNA test, meaning I would only let my ex have him on weekends and occasionally on holidays. Even though I know Carrie isn't mine and that fighting for her would be wrong, I can't bring myself to leave Michael's side. After all, if only by a half, they are siblings. I haven't seen Carrie since the test, but I want to protect them from any harm. I can't allow her to witness my breakdown. My and her therapy will come at a hefty price. I mean, could her real dad really afford it? After that meeting, as I was driving home, I had a sinister thought, ending it might be simpler for everyone but me. Families could maintain their privacy, my ex-wife could use our family's wealth to live wherever she pleased, and the children wouldn't have to deal with the chaos of a broken home. By the time I got home, though, I had forgotten about that. My attorney, Nadia, is drafting the divorce decree and severing the legal link that certifies my paternity for Carrie. This will take a while, but I won't have any ties that compel me to continue communicating, making payments, or spending time with a kid that isn't mine. We are also investigating Carrie's biological father. Ancestry websites may provide information, suggesting close relatives. There's our first step. If we don't find him directly, we may find a cousin, brother, or other relative. Carrie's real dad may not even be aware of her existence. I want to clear my name and be there for the two children caught in the middle of all of this, despite the heartache and the legal maze. For Michael, my son, to make sure they have what they need, and for Carrie, even though we are not blood relatives. Despite the difficulties along the way, including emotional and legal conflicts, I am steadfast in my resolve. Driven by a sense of obligation and a strong conviction in doing what's right for everyone involved, especially for the innocent lives entwined in this ordeal, I will walk this path no matter how difficult. It might cause him some concern, but I doubt it will be near to the horror I experienced when I realized my daughter was never really mine. Nothing is stable at the moment because everything is so chaotic. Right now, our daily task is chaos. On Sunday afternoon, the kids will return home. Although I've never felt the need to avoid seeing them, I know there will be unanticipated events. I'm not even sure what I'll say to her when she comes to me and wants to hug her father, tell her I'm not the one she's looking for, or hug her and cry because she has never truly been mine. I'm not a mean person, but my heart is broken. It seems as though I have no one to lash out at, not even Mari, as nothing I could possibly do would compare to the betrayal she has committed against me. That scale is untippable. She betrayed and ignored me. For her dishonest and unfaithful actions, she deserves the worst. Everything I ever loved is gone, and so am I. I'm going to prevail in the divorce. Mari has taken so much value away from me, but Nadia and her team will make sure that everything is divided in the most unbalanced way in the history of divorces. She seems to have already triumphed. Never mind about her. She'll try to turn my son against me, and some people are so evil that they deserve the worst. That's all I have left. I'm aware that I'm not alone in my foolishness. I made the dumb mistake of having a child with someone like that. I received a text message from the law firm GOAT at 3 p.m. Sunday to let them know she was on her way to the house and that the kids were safe in the car with their belongings. I don't think anyone has ever feared a text as much as I did. That one. The fact that I would have grinned and looked forward to that message weeks earlier only served to heighten the sadness. All of a sudden, something I would have eagerly anticipated became something I feared. I didn't intend to bring up divorce, their real father, or any other difficult subject with the kids. I knew in my heart that I was not prepared for what was about to happen, even with all of my efforts. My goal was to maintain the status quo, similar to the occasions when the children were left with their grandparents while Mari and I were away. I wanted that, but I had no control over reality. The intern from our company, Jessica, pulled into the driveway. I watched them come through the window and went outside to greet them. As I walked over to Jessica's car, I couldn't help but smile, but when I saw Carrie's wide smile from her seat, my smile turned to tears. Not even the hardest blow could make that smile disappear. I thought that by smiling, I could deceive the children and even myself into thinking that everything was fine. I ought to have a fallback strategy. Michael was there the moment Carrie was free, and I gave them a big hug. Through my tears, all I could manage was to say, "I missed you." Permit people to think as they please. I've experienced enough open and covert hate, but this emotion was unmatched. Unlike the day I bid them farewell. I wish I could silence the critics by saying it was the same. Maybe seeing our family, which had once been one, broken up contributed to some of my sadness. My heart could not be fixed. I was ripped apart again by seeing them and realizing she wasn't one of us. I now live in this reality. There's a new sorrow every day. The extent of Mari's betrayals is revealed. I see the children suffering, which I am powerless to end. Our happy memories now seem like falsehoods. All I can do is try to get away from the mayhem that broke out the moment I learned of Mari's betrayal. Every day, I am struck by stones of deception and discover how I have been duped. Jessica helped me carry stuff inside like an angel. She closed the doors after I dragged all of their packs like a beast. Upon letting go of their bags, I turned to see Carrie staring at me. She just stared at me with those eyes, as if she knew that I was the one who needed consolation, and she remained silent. She moved into my arms and gave me a strong hug as I knelt down. I was broken at that moment. I wanted to hold strong, but no child should have to witness an adult have such a breakdown. It sounds sensible to do what hurts them the least, but what if everything hurts them equally? What happens if the hurt persists? It must be hurting her too, letting her watch me, her rock, crumble. How is that not possible? She would be crushed if I left, but I am also harming her by staying. It is not the place of a 6-year-old to console an adult man, especially for something that is not her fault. I was so mad at Mari right then. However, the young child she claimed to be mine merely demonstrated love by hanging on. That's when I realized the obvious: we're both in pain. I should handle it better because I'm the adult and she doesn't even realize she's been hurt yet. Like if we survived a plane crash and were the only ones left, it will have a lasting impact on us. But we must support one another as survivors. We must help one another since we are experiencing similar hardships. Yes, our perspectives are different, but at that precise moment, I was experiencing loss and trying to keep her from feeling it by going through it myself. I thought of this as Mari stealing my kid from me, but it's just as real to say Mari took her dad away from her. The bad one in this story is Mari. I'm over feeling like I need to feel sorry for what I feel. There's no guide on how to be a dad out there. Reddit has answers when someone's being cheated on, advice all the way to the end. But how to deal with finding out the kid you've been raising isn't yours? That's nonsense. No one can tell me how to feel. The only thing I can compare it to is kids switched at birth. That's a couple dealing with it together. They were both tricked. They both find out the kid they thought was theirs is actually from 2 other people. Until you've gone through that or what I am now, you can't understand how it feels. Half an hour later, I managed to pull myself together. Jessica left with a hug from all 3 of us. I gave her a small envelope with $1,500 for gas. I knew she drove an electric car, and so did she. It wasn't for gas. I held Carrie in my arms as Michael showed me stuff he'd made with his granddad. Carrie made sure I knew she helped with the wood staining by keeping her arms around my neck. We played our usual "I don't believe you" game, and Michael joined in. It turned into a tickling game, first for Carrie, then Michael. I can't say how amazing and yet sad it was to hear Carrie's laughter. Seeing Michael happy was a light for my aching heart because I knew we wouldn't have many moments like this in the future. They teamed up to wrestle me down. I loved seeing them work together, even if it was against me, father or not. By the time she's old enough to date, she'll be able to firmly say no. I turned on some tunes. Since she was little, Carrie always loved music. From the moment she was born, we danced every week until last month. I might look silly, but who cares? We have a blast, and she loves to be as goofy as me. I ordered some food through Uber Eats for dinner. We're not Asian, but we love eating like we are. Michael can really eat, low gain impressive for a 10-year-old, and Carrie, for some reason, has a thing for crab rangoon. I didn't eat much. My lack of appetite helped with keeping my weight down. But sitting down for dinner with them, that was priceless. They both had school that day. After dinner, I got them ready for bed, bath, and into their PJs. Michael likes winding down with a book. I hugged him, told him I loved him, and said good night. Carrie was next. I read her a story, pointing out details in the pictures. As she was about to fall asleep, I felt tears coming. I kissed her on the head and told her I love you. For the first time since I knew, go ahead, call me the worst, it doesn't matter. Admitting I loved her was like accepting the truth among all the confusion in my life. My love for Carrie is one of those truths. It feels different now, but my love is real. Before, I didn't want to take anything from her, but now, I just want to give all I can. That's a big shift for me, but I was kind of hoping to hear her say she loves me too. I know she does, but hearing it is different. Instead, she told me, Mommy loves you. I heard her. I made sure not to get upset and asked her softly, Carrie, why did you say that? She said, Mommy told her. I gently asked if Mommy just mentioned it or told her to tell me. That it looked like my soon-to-be ex-wife had her reasons for explaining why my visits had stopped and why they weren't seeing me like before. She actually told the kids her parents' place was now her home, which honestly was a bit of relief. But the whole I love you nonsense, I needed to dig into that more. So, I kept on asking questions. Then, Michael walked in. He spilled that their mom said she wasn't coming back because I didn't love her anymore. What was I supposed to do with that? Admit it was all my fault, that I just stopped loving their mom? No way. I rang up our usual babysitter. I asked if she could swing by for a few hours since the kids were already asleep and she could hit the books while making some cash. She was game. I jumped in the car and headed straight to my in-laws. Didn't even call ahead. When I got there, I knocked on the door and asked to speak with Mari. Her mom showed me to her old room where she was lying low, healing up. Before her mom could leave, I grabbed the door handle and made it clear Mari and I needed to talk. Her mom caught the vibe that I was not in the best of moods and left quickly. As soon as we were alone, I unloaded. I asked Mari how she dared to make it sound like our split was all because I couldn't love her. She claimed it was the truth. I shot back, saying the real reason was her lies, her betrayal, and her way of dodging the blame for what she did. She tried to say she was sorry, but I wasn't having any of it. What good was an apology? It wasn't going to fix what was broken, it wasn't going to erase the hurt. And despite her words, I didn't buy that she was truly sorry for her actions. I pressed her on how she could twist our kids' views, make me out to be the villain. If she felt any guilt at all, I wanted to know. When, in her mind, did I become the monster who wrecked our marriage? She threw it in my face, the moment I didn't offer her a do-over. Honestly, I paused, asking about her meds and if booze was in the mix. That was my only guess for why she'd think a person who lied and cheated deserved another shot. Kindness and respect? Nope, she tossed that away herself, and now I hardly knew who my wife was. It was as if she were taken over by some wild spirit, a blend of infamous names. My once pure and loving wife turned into something unrecognizable, and I counted it as a sheer miracle I was still healthy after all her betrayals. I had to ask if ruining everything was worth it just for flings. She argued it wasn't all about the affairs, she had wanted no feelings involved. Yet she confessed much of it was seeking approval. At first, she enjoyed the attention. When I challenged her concept of purity, she got mad. But really, choices shape how we're seen. Always. She'll have to live with that. Mari and I ended up spending hours talking after our son, Michael, was born. She slid into deep sadness but said I was nothing but supportive. So, I asked why she turned on me like that. She shared that even amidst our joy, a part of her was so filled with worry, she thought about ending it all. She felt love for me and Michael, yet there was this overwhelming sadness and emptiness she couldn't shake. She took extra time off work because of it. I spared no expense on therapists and doctors. She acknowledged it, but this made her feel even guiltier, like she was letting me down since I was picking up all the slack. It all made her feel even more trapped, even though she knew she wasn't the one shouldering everything. Despite the simplicity and storytelling form, touching on such complex themes with caution and sensitivity is recommended. Remember, discussions about relationships, emotional distress, and personal struggle require empathy and understanding. She started to question if she was cut out to be a mom, even though she had always dreamed of it. She pulled away from friends, both in real life and online. Every day she told me she loved me and said sorry. I kept telling her she had no reason to say sorry. I just wanted her to feel better. But maybe her sorries were for what she was planning to do next. When Rebecca showed up out of the blue that day, I was so happy to see her. I knew Becca was tough enough not to be pushed away, but gentle enough to get Mari to open up. It still took months before we could call anything a night out. Getting Mari to even go to Starbucks felt like a win. A lot of people would think I was wrong to let my wife go out to bars or clubs with a single friend, and they'd usually be right. I should have stepped in sooner. But at that time, after all the darkness and being alone, seeing her get out seemed to make her happy. Even just that first time. She tried to tell me how quickly she had to become a wife and mom within 2 years. She said that getting attention from men, even just for sex, made her feel good about herself. She admitted the first time she was unfaithful, it wouldn't have happened if she wasn't so drunk. But she went through with it. She knew I'd leave her if I found out, since she brought nothing into our marriage. I asked her if she thought I'd ever find out she cheated or what I'd do if I did. She said she knew it would crush me. She felt awful about it. I asked why she kept cheating. She said that the guilt, shame, and regret hit her as soon as she sobered up. I remembered she was really down for a week after she went out the first time. Rebecca came over, and they talked for hours by themselves. From that point, for months, I had the old Mari back. She told me she felt she didn't deserve me because of her actions. She knew if I found out, our relationship would end, and I would confront Michael. She planned to keep it secret forever and make it up by being the best wife possible. Looking back, it seems like a warning sign. You might think I was naive, but we had a baby, and I was doing almost all the care. Suddenly, my wife was back to her old self. It seemed like a miracle. Then, within a couple of weeks, I was working part-time and then full-time, with Mari staying home with the baby. Reflecting on it, the time around when Michael turned 1 was so happy, or so I thought. Finding out she was trying to make up for a massive mistake changed how I saw those memories. I wondered if I wasn't enough for her. Our sex life seemed great, except when she was depressed. She seemed to enjoy our intimacy. She explained that hiding her secret made her feel worse, but after Michael was born, she couldn't show her sadness, worried that I'd want to help. But she couldn't tell me why. She revealed how, when I went to a family reunion with Michael and she stayed behind, claiming she was sick, that time gave way to more deceit. She could have chosen differently, been honest earlier, and let me move on. I wasn't blaming myself. She should have been on that plane with us, or more rightly, she should have come clean way before, allowing me to start over in a web of errors, tangled with lies, without a care for what's next. That load is on my back now. That's what you do to a foe, not to someone you said you loved. She spun a tale about being down that weekend I was gone. She felt she wasn't good enough, even if I didn't see it. She was punishing herself, even if I was in the dark. That's how she made sense of it. She was sure if I knew, I'd see her as nothing and turn away in disgust. My love never waned. I kept on showing her, telling her how much she meant to me. But she reached a point where she thought if I knew the real story, my love would vanish. The care I showed didn't count for much anymore because she saw herself as unworthy, and she figured I'd see it too if I knew about her low moment. She said she reached out to Becca for comfort, who talked her into going out for drinks. She started the night in tears, wondering what to do. The person serving drinks gave her a few shots to try to lift her spirits. It was unspoken, but Becca nudged her towards a bit of flirtation. She found herself sharing a kiss with a man in the dark alley behind the bar and pulled back. She returned inside feeling lower than before, hitting home that she'd stepped out on us once more. More drinks followed. Becca needed help to get Mari back inside. She asked the very man Mari had just kissed. Rebecca left them unattended, and boundaries were crossed. I asked her if she spared a thought for Michael, if I crossed her mind as she turned her back on us. That made her mad, insisting she never turned her back on our son. I made it clear she turned her back on me, on Michael, on Carrie, our families, everyone who witnessed our vows, and even on a higher power. She shattered the very essence of our family and our bond. But I stopped and just shook my head, telling her despite all she had done, she should have just set me free. Mistakes upon mistakes mixed with lies, with no thought of the fallout, and now I have to shoulder it. Action suited for an adversary, not someone you profess love for. She concocted an excuse about being sunk in sorrow that weekend I wasn't around. She believed she was not worthy, even if I was oblivious. She was penalizing herself, even if I was clueless. That's how she justified it. She knew if I became aware, I'd regard her with contempt and revulsion. My expression of love never ceased. I relentlessly affirmed my love for her. Yet she arrived at the realization that once I knew the truth, my love would dissipate. The attention I lavished on her lost its significance because she had judged herself undeserving and anticipated I'd come to the same conclusion if I discovered her demeaning escapade. She reached out to Becca for consolation, who persuaded her to get some drinks. She spent the early hours lamenting, pondering over her next move. The bartenders served her extra shots to brighten her mood, implicitly. Becca edged her towards a bit of fraternization. She ended up kissing a stranger in the darkness of the alley behind the bar, then pulled away, walking back in. She felt lower than before, realizing she had once again been unfaithful. More drinking ensued. Becca sought help to assist Mari back inside. She enlisted the very man Mari had just extemporaneously kissed. Rebecca left them unattended, and boundaries were crossed. I queried if at any moment she thought of Michael, if I flickered through her mind as she betrayed us. She became irate, insisting she never betrayed our son. I elucidated that she betrayed me, Michael, Carrie, our families, everyone who bore witness to our union and the divine. She breached the sanctity of our family and matrimony, but I halted and merely shook my head, intimating despite her actions, she ought to have released me. I had said to her I would have cared for Michael, and she could have run wild with anyone after we split. I was even ready to scribble her name on Lou walls for her. But no, she chose to lie and cheat. Hearing about it all made my stomach turn. She had a plan after the early flings. She didn't want these guys to cling to her because she wasn't planning to stick around. No heartstrings for her. She called it fishing, grab a number, start a chat, show a bit of interest, then step back, make them come after her but at her pace. When she said she knew I found her pretty, getting more eyes on her didn't seem so wrong. Then I just looked at her, head shaking. Well, the bar guy isn't Car's dad. He was out of the picture too early to have been involved, and she said it was a one-off thing with him. When I asked if she could recall any of the guys' names she was leading on, maybe a few first names, but I wouldn't know where to find them. That put an end to our talk for the night. Yeah, I wanted more out of it, but the messy details weren't coming out in one go, and that wasn't why I was there to start with. She was sitting down, her cast propped on pillows, so I got close, right in her face. I told her she was a sad excuse for a person, and I really thought she was soulless. I told her that what she did caused so much hurt and would keep hurting in days to come. But I stared straight into her eyes, making it clear I wouldn't let her harm my kids anymore. I said it straight. I was the one tricked for 6 years. If anyone deserved a break to look after his own needs, it was me. But Mari, I told her, meaning every word. Any petty games and tricks would just make me despise her even more. In that moment, something inside me shifted. The pain and betrayal morphed into a hardened resolve, the kind that forges steel in one's spine. I knew then the road ahead was mine to carve, for me, for Michael, for the shards of a family left in the wake of deceit. As I stood up, leaving her in that chair, I wasn't just walking away from her. I was stepping into a new dawn, one where I call the shots, where my kids' laughter drowns out the echoes of past lies, a future, however uncertain, that we'd face on our terms, no longer shadowed by her chaos. I had made up my mind. There was no turning back to her. Her touch made my skin crawl. Faithful, that word wasn't in her book. But whether I was Car's dad or not, my promise was to her. I planned to shield her the best I could. If it came down to guarding her from her mother's web of lies and tricks, I was ready. I warned her I knew people who'd jump at a new car in exchange for proving her an unfit mom. Yes, I threatened her, and I didn't regret a word. I told her to speak directly to me, no more using Michael or Carrie as messengers. I wanted Carrie left out of our mess, the divorce, the doubts about who her dad was. When it was time, I'd be the one to tell it. It would be me explaining how we were both let down by her mom, yet we made it through. I wasn't about to let the one who caused so much pain twist the story or point fingers at me. That hard conversation was not coming unless absolutely necessary, and I'd be the judge of that. I reminded her she was a lawyer, and told her the kids are staying with me for the next couple of weeks. She needed time to think about her actions, how she played us, hurt Carrie. I'd tell her when she could be a mom again. She was stuck. I had the kids, she was in 2 casts. Some alone time might do her good. God knows I've messed up plenty in life. Driving back, I wished I could have seen the future, known how it would all go down. This battle, it's the toughest I've faced. I hope it's the worst I ever face. But so much is broken. The fake happy life I was living needs to be destroyed, crushed, and the ground salted. I can't stand the thought of bringing any pain to little Carrie, who is right now living in a world of joy, unaware of the storm between her mother and the man she calls daddy. I want to keep her world peaceful. Those kids should never see us together. When Mari and I share a space, it's like the air itself is full of poison. That's not just bad for us. I won't let the kids see that kind of mess. I refuse to fight her in front of them. However, I promise I will stand my ground and call out any wrongs. I know this message has been long. Every choice feels like it's got 1,000 outcomes. The folks who tell me to man up or say blood doesn't make a family need to see that the last thing I want is to hurt Carrie. I'm here to be her rock, to fight for her. How this mess will untangle, I can't say. But me and that sweet girl got let down by the same person, and I'll be damned if I let that person hurt her like she hurt me. Not on my watch. And nobody's getting near my daughter without my say-so. This won't be Mari's call to make. I'll do the checks myself, and if it comes to it, I'll decide. Until then, my son Michael, my daughter Carrie, and I are braving the storm. I've kept them safe from what's brewing, and I'll keep them from the fallout as much as I can. But our hearts might get bruised along the way. This mess could have been sidestepped, but once the fuse is lit, there's no turning back. Sorry for dumping all this. I meant to just give an update, yet here we are. Sometimes it's all a bit too much. Yes, I'm in therapy twice a week. Not sure if it's making a difference yet, but it's still early days, so I'll stick with it. Time for bed now, so I'm leaving this here. Might be a while before I write again. It does help a bit to put words to some of my feelings. Thanks for listening. I need to focus on healing and making sure this shift in our lives goes as smoothly as it can for the kids. Thanks for all the advice and kind words. Many of you have truly helped, promising to pay it forward. But not today. I'm stepping into a story that feels vast and tangled. It's like trying to pick up the threads of a tale that's wound through every part of my world. So if my words twist and turn, bear with me. This is going to be a journey. Picture waking from a dream, the kind that feels more real than life, only to realize it was all smoke and mirrors. Mari thrust Michael, Carrie, and myself onto a stage we never chose, and an ill-conceived drama that ended as abruptly as it began. Now the illusion's shattered, leaving us to face a cold, hard day. Not a moment passes without aching for the joy of that old, deceptive life. Yet I know it's a past soaked in falsehoods I wouldn't reclaim. Here's the heart of it. I'm no longer, in the eyes of the law, Car's dad. Though my blood never matched hers, my name once did grace her birth certificate. Now it's been erased. Stuck in a strange limbo by marriage to Mari, I've become something like a stepfather, an odd turn of phrase. And once our divorce crosses the finish line, I'll be left as nothing to her, and her to me. A stark transition that, despite the simplicity of severing a non-biological tie, dragged on for 4 months due to imminent divorce proceedings. The necessity of removing my name from her certificate, a hurdle in splitting our lives legally, was clear. Though biology can tie you to a child for a lifetime of support, the courts weigh the removal of a name from such a document with a heavy heart. It ultimately rested in the hands of a judge to decide if erasing my name served Car's best interest. Despite DNA's role and obligations, it's the emotional and legal entanglements that often tip the scales. From the start, when I found out Carrie wasn't mine by blood, it hit me hard, deep down in a place I can't even put into words. But letting my feelings lead the way wasn't going to help anyone. Feelings can trick us, they don't always follow logic. If I let my love for Carrie decide, it'd be just as wrong as if I let my anger towards Mari, her mom, guide me. Legally, I could have walked away from Mari and Carrie, washed my hands clean. But deep inside, I knew that wasn't right. Carrie shouldn't pay for her mom's mistakes. I couldn't let her think any of this mess was her fault. So, after a lot of thinking, I saw that Carrie and we were both wronged by Mari. Mari's choice to cheat took away any say I had in our life together. I wasn't told she didn't love me anymore, or that she never did. I was kept in the dark about her lying and cheating. I was made to believe a child born from her affair was mine for 6 years. Carrie never got to choose me as her dad. She never got the chance to say how wrong her mom's actions were. I decided we both needed a voice in this. The very next day after my name was wiped from Car's birth certificate, I took a bold step. I filed papers to legally adopt her as my daughter. It was a big moment, not just a legal step, but a statement in the midst of a system that often feels unfair. A system where many men might not have done what I chose to do. I wanted to stand up, not just for me, but for Carrie. Despite the deep cut of betrayal, this was about taking a stand, making a decision not out of bitterness, but out of a bigger kind of love. This path didn't justify the wrongs done, nor did it make the unfairness of the situation any less. Yet it was a move made out of clarity, not clouded by the whirlwind of emotions that had the potential to lead us down a path of more hurt. I wanted to ensure that Carrie felt loved and supported, irrespective of the chaos her mother had brought into our lives. It was a reaffirmation that actions speak louder than words, and my action to adopt her was my voice, our voice, in a situation that tried to silence us. To adopt Carrie was to embrace the journey we had walked together, acknowledging the pain but choosing to build something stronger from it. Despite the turmoil, it was a testament to the enduring nature of love, a love that chooses to rise above the hurt and the betrayal. In adopting her, I wasn't just signing a piece of paper, I was signing up for a lifetime of healing, understanding, and most importantly, fatherhood, no matter the circumstances. That was my plan from the start. Only if I could be sure that seeing her wouldn't bring back the hurt her mom caused me. I needed to know one thing for sure, but I couldn't know it until I met her again. After finding out she's not my flesh and blood, if seeing her had felt like the hit her mom gave me when I found her cheating, I couldn't have gone through with it. Some might say I'm wrong for feeling this way. Fragile masculinity was what one harsh critic called it when I doubted how I'd feel seeing Carrie again. If I had left Mari and Carrie, which was my right, I still wouldn't see myself as wrong. And yes, having Michael around did play a part in my choices, since Carrie is his sister and Mari his mom. He's a great brother, and she adores him. That fact influenced my decisions. But Carrie is my daughter, no, not in the same way Michael is, because he shares my blood. But I am her dad, and I want her in my life. I just felt I needed to clear things up legally and open doors we never had. On the outside, it looks like pointless legal steps to end up where I started. My marriage was fake, my time with Mari was just an act, probably from the start. What I want is a fresh start, a chance to love someone new, hoping she might be true. But that's impossible. I can't know what could have been, if anything would have been better than marrying a woman who wasn't loyal.